Thank you for joining us again on Money Matters. I am Folashade Ogurinde. Recent data released by the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics, NBS, gave a not-so-good report of Nigeria's economic standing, from high inflation rates to rising unemployment figures, as well as rising debt profile. These figures cast a doubt on Nigeria's quick economic recovery plan in 2021. This next report has the details. Nigeria's goal to revamp the economy by first quarter of 2020 has suffered periodic setbacks. Latest report by the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics, NBS, places the country's consumer price index, which measures inflation rate for February 2021, at 17.33%. This represents the highest inflation rate recorded in 4 years. While the NBS report highlights rising food prices as a major driver of Nigeria's headline inflation, economic expert says this report is bad news for Nigeria's plan for economic revival.
Obviously, it means more poverty. It means more food crisis. It means more rise in food prices. So it's not a good news that we are unable to tame the inflation. The underlying figures around farm produce being so high shows that the crisis going on in all the six regions of the country are yet to subside. And you know that they have impact on food production and even impact on harvest. So the crisis. Then, of course, there are movements of food outside our borders, which again, you can do very little about because they are all protected by Africa Free Trade Area Treaty and then ECOWAS Free Movement Treaty.
While Nigeria's galloping inflation continues to sit in the front burner of the nation's economic outlook, steady increase in unemployment rates has also raised concerns. Recent report by the NBS shows that as at December 2020, about 23.2 million Nigerians remain unemployed. Meanwhile, the rate of underemployed persons dropped from 28.6% recorded as at the second quarter of 2020 to 22.8% in Q4 of the same year.
We've seen the bad news about the job. Unemployment rate is 33.3%. And then in fact, when you look at the youth unemployment, that again is 42.5%. So we're moving into a very, very dangerous territory right now in terms of unemployment. Even the underemployment is 22.8%. So we need to do something about food processing.
Although these effects on the economy have been linked to the impact of COVID-19 on both local and international economies, experts are confident that the nation's economy will be resuscitated in no time. Welcome back. To shed more light on this issue, I'm joined now by business analyst Dr. Chijioke Ikechukwu, the CEO of Dignity Finance and Investment Limited. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. Now, what do you make of Nigeria's current inflation rate of 17.33%, the highest in 4 years? Does this figure raise red flags for you?
Yes, it's very alarming to have our inflation rate galloping the way it is right now. And the most important thing is just to identify why the figures are rising this way. First on the list of the reasons causing the inflation rate, the high inflation rate, is the level of insecurity in the northern part of the country, and indeed the major suppliers of the food that we eat in the country. And so until farmers are able to get into their farms and farm without being harassed in their farms, without being kidnapped, we may not be able to have the kind of food pricing that we expect to have. The production capacity of the North in terms of agricultural production has reduced tremendously because many farmers have actually disappeared from their farms and from their villages. And so the quantity of food that we used to receive from the North has actually dropped very well. Even if the farmers are able to go to their farms, you see that conveying the products from the farm, the cities that are going to be required will almost be impossible because of level of insecurity, kidnapping, and killings that are taking place all over the place. And the second major reason why the inflation rate is just rising is the exchange rate of naira to the dollar and other currency. And so you see that as far as we have an exchange rate that is as high as 480 naira per dollar, we may not be anywhere finding the solution to our inflation rate. And of course, there are other reasons why the inflation rate is rising. The cost of production arising from the cost of the petroleum products that we use, diesel, and the fact that we still do not have steady electricity supply, which obviously makes it impossible for manufacturers and business people to have their own use NEPA, and of course, since they cannot use the electricity of government, everybody has to provide this energy and power. So these are the things that are causing the high level of inflation rate up there.
Now, to what extent will this rising inflation rate affect foreign investment and also domestic investment?
Yes, it was good that you included the domestic investment because before foreign investors will consider investing in Nigeria, they will want to hear from local investors within the country. So the dynamics, the various indicators, our economic indicators are in the public domain, and every business person, every investor looks at some of these. You'll be able to do business. However, you know that when the inflation rate is high and the exchange rate is also high, it's a good time for investors to come in. Actually, it's a good time for investors to come in because with little money, they change it into naira. They have more money than they ever expect to have. So it's actually not going to work against investment into the country because investors are going to see this opportunity to invest in the country. Let me give you an instance. If before now you could spend $100,000 at the lower rate, but today at the rate of 480, that $100,000 is going to give you an amount probably up to 48 million naira, which give you more opportunity to spend more and income more. But unfortunately, again, the inflation rate will actually, on the other way, reduce the value of this 48 billion, which would have achieved more for now, but the inflation rate will reduce. So, give and take, it is a win some and lose some when there is such inflation rate.
So certainly, this inflation rate is not good news for foreign investment, and we all know how Nigeria needs that at this time. But let's talk about the current negative trade balance. The MES revealed that in Q4 2020, Nigeria recorded a trade deficit of 7.37 trillion naira. Now, this is a lot because the Bureau attributed this negative trade balance to the plunge in the value of Nigeria's export. Please, what do you think about this, and to what extent would this, affect Nigeria's goal of exceeding, of improving its economy in 2021?
Yeah, first of all, it was also not an encouraging statistics to hear about concerning our trade. If we must identify why that is happening, we should also know that what is going on in our various agricultural locations is contributing to it. The low capacity of manufacturing that we have, low manufacturing capacity that we have today, where many factories have been shut down, and even those that are manufacturing are less than their capacity. These are contributing to our very low export pay currently. There's no doubt that the lockdown that took place at the middle of last year also contributed to this. But I can tell you, once the domestic capacity is not enhanced, the export volume is going to be affected. So we need to do a few things. First of all, we need to ensure that our refineries are working. If our refineries are working, and even serve the local market and start serving foreign countries in terms of supply of petroleum products, That way we can earn some.
Now, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Dr. Ikechukwu, but you know, you touched on a subject that has been in the news for some days now. The Nigerian government made mention that they would like to reinvest in the Port Harcourt refinery and you know, use a certain strategy to ensure that the refineries are working and bringing in money for Nigeria. While some have applauded FG's move, some experts say that this is more or less like pouring water in a basket. How do you react to this?
I am of also the view that, first of all, why now? Why now? Because we already have a private sector refinery that is going to come on stream any moment from now. And every effort should be made to encourage that particular refinery so that there won't be any distraction. A lot of monies have been pumped into the federal government refineries all over the country for many years, and no result has been generated. And of course, when we even hear about the amount being mentioned, one would wonder, considering the fact that we heard that Shell was selling their own refinery somewhere outside the country for far less than what we are even using to pay ours. I think this is not the time to take that kind of decision, considering the fact that we have a refinery that is coming up any moment from now, and we need to do everything to encourage that refinery to take off and take off well. Instead of using that kind of money to repair our refinery, we need to actually push it into any other major sector of this economy in order to stimulate that sector. Otherwise, that is not a priority for us to encounter right now. So I belong to that school of thought that says we shouldn't spend that kind of money on refinery.
And what do you think the solution is?
We already have a solution coming from the Dangote refinery that's coming up. And so we should even see how well the refinery is going to help the economy of this country. And we're going to be making money from that refinery in all space. And so the solution is the fact that if they must have anything to do with the government refineries that are in Kaduna, in Port Harcourt, and Warri, we should actually hand it over to private sector and let them buy it off or have a joint venture with government and run it profitably. Government has been known not to be good managers of business. With the level of corruption that is in the country, the government is not a good manager of business. So we need to, if we must do anything with the refineries, we must hand them over to private sector to run profitably. That's the only solution right now.
Now, Nigeria exited recession with a GDP growth of 0.11% in Q4 2020. However, this growth hasn't reflected in other key areas of the economy. Can you explain why?
Yeah, first of all, that growth is just a marginal growth. Now, it's very marginal because other countries, I can mention within Africa, are growing even at a rate of 7%. And so when you compare the growth rate of 7% to a growth rate of 0.1 something percent, you just know that that is just a very marginal. And the growth only just started happening. And so we need to sustain that growth and watch it grow before it will affect positively the economy. The second thing affecting that is the fact that with the population we have, we need to have a growth rate of 7% and above for the populace of Nigeria to start experiencing the impact of such growth. We have a high population, and with this marginal growth, the economy and the citizens are not going to see any improvement in their quality of life. That's the reason.
Well, you know, there are lots of issues to discuss, basically, but we need to go for a short break now, Dr. Ikechukwu. Money Matters returns shortly.
Hello? Yeah, I found your wallet in front of a supermarket. Meet me at Apple Junction. Yes, I'll be waiting for you.
Now we find out. Two of us.
Thank you very much, officer. You know, it's surprising that men like you still exist in the police force.
Yes, so...
Oh, yes.
This is just a token of my appreciation.
Oh, no, you don't need to do this. We are only doing our job.
Thank you very much. God bless you.
You're welcome.
Now I know police is really my friend.
Yes.
Friend. Hey. Okay, which came up with this one? I don't understand.
You know your problem. You are greedy. I'm a policeman who is doing his job. All forms of corruption in the force. Not in my country.
Corruption not in my country.
Welcome back. You're still watching Money Matters, and I've been speaking with Dr. Ikechukwu on Nigeria's recent high inflation rate, rising debt profile, unemployment rate, as well as other issues. Now, Dr. Ikechukwu, before we went for that break, we're talking about you know, the difference between Nigeria's GDP growth and how it's not reflecting in Nigeria's current economic well-being. But let's now move on to other issues. You know, part of the core economic concerns in Nigeria right now is a rising debt profile. What do you make of this?
Yeah, it's a major concern. But I have, I usually will have a suggestion and a recommendation for this. Many times we talk about our revenue base not being large enough to take the deficit side of our budget. Now, if we're not having enough revenue base, is it not necessary for us to cut down on unnecessary spending for government and in the economy? You know, it's just like an individual whose income reduces. If your income reduces, you automatically need to reduce your spending in order for you to manage your life within the limits of your revenue. Now, this is a country where our revenue base is dropping every day, and we're still spending as if we are a very buoyant economy.
But
So,
Dr. Ikechukwu, government would,
yes,
you know, to what you said now, government would say
yes,
that, you know, the what is being spent is basically on, you know, investments such as, or schemes, you know, to revamp the economy. That is usually that is the regular defense. Or do you think, you know, government's
okay,
defense is in line
yeah,
with,
let me
you know, what
explain
you're
this.
saying now, that it doesn't correlate?
Yes. Well, let me explain this. If you have ever looked at the budget of various ministries and parastatals, you will see a lot of items repeating themselves. Now, you will see items like computers again. You will see items like pool vehicles or utility vehicles. That's what they call it now, in order for them to get approval. Now, you ask, why are we buying new sets of computers and we see such quantity and such numbers? Why are we buying vehicles now? Why are we buying certain things like furniture, new furniture and things like that? Why are we engaging in certain expenditure in government, either in the state or in the federal, as if everything is still okay? Now, I'm not talking about the capital projects that government is spending and they say once they spend like that, it will stimulate the economy. I'm talking about even the budgets of the various ministries and parastatals where we spend money for things that are not necessary. We cannot have budgets as if this is a new country where new computers are being bought, new utility vehicles are being bought. You know, we need to spend as if we are trying to survive from economic recession. And so when you spend like that, you see that most of the things that are in our budget are not necessarily going to be there. We see things that sound like a constituency project, and you see a value of a constituency project being like maybe the real value of that project could just be like 30 million, and you see that same value, that same project being valued at 500 million. So those are the kind of things I'm talking about. We need to really look at every item in our budget and know that we are not doing like we're serious about coming out of recession or growing our economy. We need to have a real fiscal discipline in the way we do our budgeting, and we need to do it all over again. And we don't have to continue with the same method we have been using. That's actually what I'm talking about.
All right, Dr. Ikechukwu, let's shift gears now. The latest unemployment figures released by the NBS shows that over 23.2 million Nigerians are out of jobs. On the other hand, federal government has rolled out several schemes to tackle the high unemployment rate. What do you think of this issue?
I can tell you that unemployment rate all over the world cannot be tackled by government releasing funds to individuals and to different accounts, or call them intervention funds also. Now, unemployment rate can actually be controlled and managed by the private sector. And so what needs to be done is for a very good business environment, enabling environment, to be given to various sectors of the economy to drive private businesses. Now, let's even be a little practical in this case. If you have ever been to Kaduna, you will see a particular street, I don't know what they call that street, where textile factories used to be. Well over 30 factories were shut down. And if you imagine the number of staff of those factories that are roaming around the streets today, then you imagine the number of people that have increased the unemployment rate. We used to have tire companies like Dunlop and Michelin and other companies in Nigeria. Those ones have shut down. And so their number of staff couldn't have been anything less than 500 each of those factories. So that number has increased the number of unemployed staff, of unemployed people today in the country. And we have many of such factories all over the country. And so those factories are not government. But government will have to take certain decisions that will make those factories work. So we need to have government policies that will favor the establishment and revamping of private sector companies and industries in order for us to have these people employed again. It is not about releasing money as intervention fund. That's not what the economy needs. We need factories, manufacturing sector, and the rich sector to be up and running again, and other sectors of the economy up and running again. But if you're talking about releasing funds to individuals or to the agricultural sector, yes, that has done well, especially in growing agricultural sector. But we also need to have a more robust agricultural master plan for the country, so that even when the next government comes, they will follow the master plan and must produce whatever thing we have as our master plan for agriculture and other sectors.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the master plan, because it's no secret in Nigeria that when a new government comes in, the plan more or less dies. We've seen that happen over and over again. But still speaking about unemployment rate in Nigeria, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, said Nigeria needs to create 5 million jobs annually for 10 years to close the unemployment gap. Now, how feasible is this, considering that many economic challenges Nigeria is currently facing?
There are many ways that can happen. The first thing is just for the policy, maybe the monetary policy, to make it very, very easy for people to access funds from banks and other financial institutions. Now, if so many Nigerians can access funds and they monitor those funds, you see that a lot of people are going to go into private business. And when they go into private business, they will employ more and more people in their businesses. But as far as we have interest rates still as high as it's looking today, I know that CBN has done a lot to make sure deposit rates and other rates, investment rates, are reduced, but they have not done enough to ensure that lending rates are also as low as deposit rates. In fact, to the extent that there should be very thin margin between deposit and lending rates. Once we're able to achieve that, you see that we can even have interest rates for lending as low as 5% per annum. Once we're able to do that, people are going to have access to funds, and they're going to be funding their businesses, and more entrepreneurs are going to be emerging. And so this is a major quick win we have to do in order for such targets to be achieved. But it's not by government employing Nigerians in their various ministries and parastatals. That's not the solution. The solution is just to reflect the economy and stimulate it, and so that more and more people will have access to funds in order to fund their own business.
Well, certainly these are very pertinent issues that everybody's wishing or hoping that the government implements to ensure that by 2021 second quarter, Nigeria would have revived its economy. But thank you very much, business analyst Dr. Chijoke Ikechukwu, the CEO of Dignity Finance and Investments Limited, for your time on Money Matters.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
And it's a wrap on the program. Thank you very much for watching. I am Fola Shadi. Ogurinde. Bye for now.